My name is Clara Whitmore, and the day my billionaire grandfather's will was read, my entire family thought they had already won. They arrived early. My uncles were whispering about private islands. My cousins were scrolling through pictures of yachts on their phones. Even my aunt had started discussing which of grandfather's estates she would move into. Because my grandfather, Arthur Whitmore, hadn't just been wealthy, he had been one of the richest men in the world. His logistics empire stretched across shipping ports, airlines, oil terminals, and tech infrastructure. And when the final reports were tallied, the number everyone kept repeating was impossible to ignore: $100 billion. The entire family believed they were about to inherit a portion of that fortune, except me. I sat quietly in the back of the law office wearing a borrowed black blazer. My bank account had less than $200. I worked as a junior researcher at a marine conservation nonprofit. Compared to the rest of my relatives, I might as well have been invisible, and that's exactly how they treated me. But then the lawyer cleared his throat and said something that froze the entire room. According to the final will of Arthur Whitmore, the controlling estate will be transferred to a single heir. My Uncle Victor leaned forward. My cousin Amanda smiled confidently. Everyone assumed it would be one of them. Then the lawyer looked directly at me. Clara Whitmore. The room went completely silent. My aunt gasped. My cousin actually laughed. "That's ridiculous," she said. But the lawyer calmly slid a thick document across the table. The estate valuation is approximately $100 billion. And suddenly, every person in the room was staring at me like I had just stolen something. But before I tell you why the richest man in my family left everything to the one person nobody expected, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your city below. I read every comment. Now, let me explain why my billionaire grandfather trusted me with his entire empire. Growing up, my grandfather was less like a person and more like a legend. He had built his empire from a single cargo ship he bought when he was 26. Over the next 50 years, he expanded it into one of the largest private logistics networks in the world. My relatives worshipped his success. They constantly tried to impress him. My Uncle Victor talked about investments. My cousin Amanda bragged about her MBA. My Aunt Caroline spent every holiday discussing real estate deals. But when I visited my grandfather, we never talked about money. We talked about the ocean. When I was 14, he once took me out on one of his ships. We stood on the deck, watching the sun disappear behind the water. He asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. "I want to protect the ocean," I said. Most people would have laughed. He didn't. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Then you're the only one in this family thinking about the future." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. Years later, I did. When my grandfather passed away, the family gathered at the Whitmore Foundation building for the will reading. Everyone arrived dressed like they were attending a corporate meeting instead of a funeral. The lawyer began reading the document. First came the donations, billions allocated to charities, universities, and medical research. Then came the properties, luxury estates, private aircraft, art collections. Each asset was carefully assigned. My relatives nodded proudly as they received various portions, but the largest section remained sealed. Finally, the lawyer opened a final envelope. This document includes a recorded message from Mr. Whitmore. The lights dimmed. A video appeared on the large screen. My grandfather sat behind his massive desk. He looked older than I remembered, but his eyes were still sharp. "If you're watching this," he said calmly, "then the family is probably arguing." Several people shifted uncomfortably. He continued, "For years, many of you believed my wealth was a prize to compete for. You believed the fortune would reward loyalty." He paused. "But wealth is not a reward. It is responsibility." Then he said something that made every head turn toward me. The only person who never asked me for money was Clara. My cousin whispered angrily, but the video continued. "When Clara visited me, she never asked about yachts or companies. She asked about the oceans our ships travel across. She asked how global trade affects the environment. She asked what billionaires owe the world. My grandfather leaned closer to the camera. So I made a decision. My controlling estate will go to the only person who understands that money should build the future, not feed greed. The video ended. The lawyer folded his hands. The transfer documents were finalized 6 months before Mr. Whitmore's death. My Uncle Victor stood up. "This is fraud." But the lawyer calmly shook his head. "The estate has already been transferred into a private trust. The decision cannot be reversed." That moment changed everything, because suddenly my family stopped treating me like I was invisible. Now I was something else entirely, an obstacle. Over the next few weeks, my phone exploded with messages. My aunt suddenly wanted to reconnect. My cousin suggested business meetings. My uncle demanded to review corporate governance. But the real confrontation came 1 month later, when my Uncle Victor arrived at my apartment with a team of lawyers. "You can't run this empire alone," he said. "We need to control the companies." He placed a contract on the table. It transferred executive authority to him. I read the document carefully. Then I remembered something my grandfather once told me while standing on that ship years ago. "Money doesn't create character," he said. "It reveals it." So I closed the folder and pushed it back toward him. "No." The room went completely silent. My uncle's face turned red. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." "Maybe," I said calmly, "but it's my mistake to make." Because the truth is, inheriting billions doesn't just change your life, it shows you exactly who people really are. And sometimes the people who feel most entitled to your success are the same people who ignored you when you had nothing. 6 months later, the Whitmore Foundation announced the largest private ocean restoration project in history. Billions of dollars invested into cleaning polluted coastlines and protecting marine ecosystems. Reporters asked me why I chose that direction. I simply repeated the words my grandfather once told me. "Wealth is not a reward, it's responsibility." And that was the moment I realized something important. My grandfather didn't leave me $100 billion because I was the smartest person in the room. He left it to me because I was the only one who never asked for it. So, tell me honestly, if you inherited $100 billion, what would you do with it?